Thanks everyone for joining another session here at the 2020 Connect, the virtual event. What I want to do today is giving you a little bit more details about an MES system and how that could look like. Just a little recap here. 2020 has a full ERP solution. So I mentioned this before, everything from order entry through scheduling, shop floor execution, the material management involved with inventory, the system makes automatically purchase suggestions. You can receive the material, you do an invoice match on that AP side. We move everything back into inventory when we receive it. We use optimization for a panel saw, and that's a base router. We generate CNC programs for point-to-point machine. So we are supporting basically a full end-to-end solution with other modules of 2020 portfolio offering. But from an ERP perspective, we can, with our solution, cover the whole shebang. Now, very often, it's also that companies have either a legacy product, homegrown solution. They have certain areas which they really, really like, other ones which they would like to replace. And that's where really the manufacturing execution systems, the MES, comes into place. In today's world, there's so much going on in our industry and in the market. And what we see is an increase in demand on production. We see a lot of supply chain challenges, and more data are available, and in somehow of a way they need to be analyzed in the right way, right? So at 2020 we have decided, yes, we do have an ERP system, but it's also, we wanted to invest a little bit more time and resources to address the whole MES, manufacturing execution system functionality, which is basically within the 2020 Inside ERP system. So basically what that is, we can also, the 2020 solution, as you've seen before, it's a modular system. And the nice one is we can offer a portion of these modular systems and plug this into other systems so that a company can benefit from the strength of multiple systems. Obviously, you have this integration part in between, which in most cases would be nice to not have it, but sometimes it's unavoidable. You can use the best out of different kind of system. So just in general, who is a good candidate for an MES solution? And what we've seen is a lot of companies who have their own legacy system, so homegrown and so on, but they still want to close certain gaps. We call it the MES gaps. So that's a good candidate for looking into an MES solution rather than an ERP. The other one is if you have today a super old or a non-industry specific ERP system, or something which is not furniture specific, then it also makes sense to look into an MES solution. And then obviously inside customers who want to expand a little bit more in certain areas. So let's have a quick look what MES really means, kind of definition. So as I mentioned before, it's a manufacturing execution system. And there is an ISA 95 standard, which ISA stands for International Society of Automation. And it defines the MES as an uniform operating model for the communication flow between either ERP systems or MES solutions. The standard was basically developed with a focus on defining the topic of MES across all industries and for all possible manufacturing processes independently. So as you can see here in this image, the MES should cover at least these 11 so-called core functionalities, and some of them is, for example, process management, quality management. Then around these, on the outside, there are areas such as like an ERP around the MES or CRM or supply chain management that communicates back with the MES. If you look at an MES system in an environment, as it usually is for us at 2020 at least, we see often these 4 levels that you can see here on the left-hand side. So on the one side, we have the enterprise level on the top, the ERP. Right underneath, we have the MES as the operating level. We added also what you see as a WMS, which is the warehouse management system, because we see in a lot of our accounts that companies are very eager to get their warehouse controlled. For an example, distributors, what they like in that particular area is they don't have manufacturing, right? They get their jobs in, and based on their jobs, they get a suggestion what they have in inventory, and otherwise they order another container coming from overseas or from somewhere else, and filling up their warehouses with flat packed. Either the front is in one package or the cabinet itself is in another one. So we are managing all of these one, and also the kitting area on which kind of sequence you go through your warehouse, that you pick everything for a certain job. So that's one example, a part of an MES system. And then we have the SCADA system, which stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, which basically represents the process control level. And then at the lowest level, we see the PLC, which is basically the machine, the control level, basically your CNC machine at the end of the day. So when we look at the flow in this environment, then we see the planning usually happens from top down. So going first on the ERP side, and it gets more detailed as we go further down in the process. Versus the data collection, that is really bottom up. So we collect data on the lowest level at the machine, for an example, through the processes and so on, so that we represent this information later on the ERP level, which is then the supervisors, the managers, the executive level, so that they can see with all the data which we have collected and make better business decisions. In the case of 2020 Insight, as you can see here in this image, Insight could be an ERP system, but Insight could also be, when you have a larger tier 1 ERP system like SAP or Oracle, we can be the next level underneath, which we do quite often, by the way, and be the MES or the warehouse management system there. Or we provide areas where we are the ERP system, integrate with something else, that we are a part of the MES system and part of the warehouse management system. So again, maybe the first image which I've shown, the bubbles, the advantage for 2020 is really to have this modular approach where we can take modules out of the whole functionality and plug this into other systems. So when we go a level deeper here, we also want to explore on how we integrate within an MES environment. And then one of the important functions is on how we how different systems can communicate with each other. On the one side, and I think we have heard this already a few times today through all kinds of presentations, there's a data integration that really plays a key role. On one side, you have the possibility between different systems, file-based, you can send a CSV file or something in Excel or something else, you can send back and forth. That's really the old technology. Much better is obviously writing directly into each other's databases. And that happens when you both systems are, for an example, on an SQL environment or the same kind of database or on a newer database platform, so that you can grab data from another system or push data into another system directly. So there's no really manual interaction necessary. The other one is web services, becoming more and more popular, that we can share data through that kind of technology. Just a couple of things. Insight could easily import from other systems or export jobs in that respect, bill of material, CNC information, or other kind of customer-related data. So the key element on the data side is here really that we want to make sure that we have in the MES environment with multiple systems online a very flexible system, and that we can importing and exporting data without manual interaction. Besides the data, another aspect is the process. What helps, obviously, is that you want to bring your company's current or your future business processes into that kind of solution. And the solution needs to be very flexible there in that respect. And Insight has an integrated workflow tool. And here's just an explanation, an example of how that could look like. So we can have individual statuses, and then if you move from one status to the next one, these little arrows, so we call this a rule, and behind each rule could be an action. So could be if I move a job from one work center to the next one, or we receive something from another system, that we send automatically an email notification to something, or a machine processes a job and is ready, sending automatically through that action information back, that inventory gets updated, that status gets updated, and so on. So it's very important that you want to have these integrated workflows and business processes within your company, and this the solution, whatever you're choosing, needs to support that. One part, particularly on the shop floor side, in order to achieve these automated processes, a key role plays routings. And routings is basically what we do at 2020. It guides the parts on how they're traveling through the shop. So for an example, a side panel, I want to know, does it go to a machine first? For an example, depends on which kind of side panel it is. Panel store as a base router, then to the edge vendor, maybe another point-to-point if required. If it's a finished end, maybe need to go in the finishing department before it goes to the kitting and then the assembly line. So the routing controls the path. Obviously, the routing controls also a big part of the cost calculation in Insight, because if it goes through the individual steps, we can track that labor. And if you have to do rework, we capture the rework cost of new material and labor as well within the system. But it also helps us on the backward scheduling side, and you see this in the other screen a little bit in the background here. So if I give a certain job a production end date, or let's say a ship date, we can back schedule through certain criteria within the system, and you can go through the bill of material and the individual routing steps in there, and we know basically based on time in each work center, when is our last possible start date for that job to get it done in time to get it out of the door. Based on that, I also know on that particular day I need raw material. And if I don't have that raw material in stock, then based on the lead time of my vendor, I know exactly how many days earlier I need to kick out a purchase order in order to receive that material. And that whole process does not need to come from one system. It can be from multiple systems. But I just want to give you an idea of how important within the process side the routing steps really are. Another one on the process side is definitely that the system generates automatically the optimization. I come to this one a little bit later, but also at least the final CNC file. In our case, what we do is we are taking the geometry data of a part, could be a side panel, could be an adjustable shelf or something else which has some drilling. So whatever part needs to be machined in any kind of way, we're taking this geometry data from our engineering tool and then basically converting this one through our post processor into the final machine code. And that could be if it's a BS machine, then we generate it automatically into a BPP file. So each different kind of machine has obviously different kind of a little bit kind of their own language, and we're basically creating that final code sitting at the machine so that the operator hits enter and we can execute that that process on the machine. We also want to look very closely on the scheduling side. We have something called a master scheduler, which helps to see what's coming down the line. For an example, if you have an ERP system, tier 1 ERP system, where the jobs are coming in, and maybe even this one generates a bill of material, and then we, 2020 Insight, plugs in as the MES system in there. We're taking these kind of jobs, and we're controlling the shop floor. A nice thing over here is that you can do fine tuning, that you can balance really the individual work centers on the capacity side. You see if something is over capacity, you can move it to another machine. If machine goes into maintenance mode, we can move it from one to another machine. And then Insight can, in the background, generate automatically the new CNC file for this new selected machine. All of this this information are also then available later on for supervisors if they don't want to see the details, if they just want to see what's the progress of my job with business intelligence functionality within the system, to provide this all back either internally within the MES part or back to the ERP system. And then we can go level deeper where we can see the schedule by shift. We see start and end time, because visualization is a key element here. And these events here basically represent what I said before. You want to plan from your ERP system all the way down and get detailed, more detailed, more detailed. And the data from the lowest level here, where you have the machines, you see the detailed information about the shift you're working on. All of this data accumulated that wants to be sent up towards the ERP, so that decision makers see all these, have all the information at their fingertips to make decisions to move the company forward. A couple other things which are important to mention on an MES system or as a standalone system there as well is the delivery side. You want to be able either in Insight or in another kind of area, another system, that you want to schedule the trucks, how to load the trucks, in which kind of sequence you load them based on how you ship them to your customer, which kind of sequence, or route scheduling, and then important is also unloading the truck, because you want to know what has been really delivered to the job site. We are supporting this kind of technology as well. One other aspect is then the data, the operating data acquisition. So we want to have a full visibility throughout the system. We want to know where are individual checkpoints on the shop floor side. Some company call it also gates, that somebody scans, has that job passed this kind of area, maybe even drilled more further down into the part details. Maybe we want to see drawings and the progress status and so many more things. Same with the material flow. We want to make sure that when backflushing happens, so I scan in a certain area, that I consume material, that material also get backflushed from inventory. And we can go as low as we build the sandwiches within the core material within the system. Truck loading, I think we touched it a little bit before, but it does help, obviously, that you can see what needs to go in a truck, what has already been loaded into the truck, and maybe you want to see on your mobile device or somewhere else what has been shipped already and what is still on the truck and needs to be unloaded from the truck at the next delivery stop. One thing I mentioned before, I wanted to go in this one a little bit more in detail, is the optimization management. So it plays a really super important role, and we see this more and more. As I said, material cost is getting higher. I think I said this in another session. And companies cannot just add that additional cost for their raw material, add this to the purchase price. So companies really look into that, how to reduce cost internally and how to optimize yield on their core material and not throw away too much material. Unfortunately, what happens is if you have a system, you create your production batches, send it over to a third party for optimization. There's not a lot of information you can get back. You send it over and you hope for the best, and then production follows based on this one. But if there is an integrated system, means not just sending a CSV file, but working with this data, and it could be within Insight, but could also be with third-party tools, which are fully integrated. Then we get this information back. We can automatically update inventory. We can control certain following aspects, that we produce labels directly at the machine. We generate the CNC code for the machine. We control remnant management. So we know what the offcuts are. We create a different label for those ones, keep them in the machine. If we have to do rework or smaller jobs, we can reuse that material and don't have to throw it away. We have an integration with material handling systems like a WinStore system from BSL and so much more. So then after the optimization happened, then you can also see if it is an integrated solution. You typically get in an optimization information based on certain parameters. If you cut a little bit less around a part, then you can go much faster through the process, but you need more material. But if you cut more around the part, I'm talking about more or less the panel saw here, where I would say use only 3 cuts to cut out a part from a sheet, or for an example, use 5 cuts maximum to cut out a part of a sheet. That optimization gives you a much better yield, but it does take a little bit longer, on the shop floor side. And again, what I mentioned, offcut plays a huge role, but you can only, and grain matching across cabinets. But again, you can only get this advantage of this one if you have an integrated solution. So if the systems are talking to each other. One thing I mentioned earlier was the warehouse management, and we see a huge benefit here to plug this into other systems. So that you can, based on you have multiple plants, maybe different larger warehouses. Within the warehouse, you have certain locations, and then within the warehouse, you have certain containers. It could be bins and so on. That can all be managed throughout the system. Again, if that system is integrated, workers can see on their mobile device where the parts are. Where's material? Where do I put it? How do I move material from one to another location? All of this information, they are available for the workers. Something we should not forget is always that we want to be able to produce certain kind of paperwork or make it at least visible for people, that they can see what's going on, what they have to do, and so on. And all of this information you can also use in our business intelligence and the dashboard. You can have dashboards within the company so that everyone can see it. You can use it for supervisors. You can use it for the executives. It basically brings from bottom to top, again, all of your data and visualize this one to your decision makers. So with that, and I believe my time is up. I have only 2 minutes left here. I would like to thank you for joining in this session. Thanks, guys, for listening.